The sky burned the night humanity fell. It began with a single streak of light over the Pacific, a glimmer mistaken for a meteor. Within hours, the stars themselves seemed to descend, raining fire upon the continents below. Cities vanished in white flashes. Oceans hissed into steam. Satellites turned to dust before a single message of warning could be sent. 50 million human lives ended before sunrise. The world screamed and then fell silent. The invaders were not gods, though they arrived as if heaven had opened. They were the Horde, an empire of cold precision and ancient cruelty. They did not speak. They did not demand surrender. They harvested. What they sought from humanity was neither land nor resources. It was submission. When resistance came, they responded with annihilation. The United Nations fractured in the first week. Nations turned to ghosts. Amid the chaos, scattered military outposts fought isolated battles, each more hopeless than the last. The Earth's skies, once alive with satellites and dreams, became the Horde's hunting grounds. But humanity has always been stubborn. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, inside a forgotten installation known as the Continuity Command, a handful of survivors prepared a final answer. It would not be an army or a fleet. Those were gone. It would be two soldiers, chosen not for rank or title, but for something rarer, the refusal to die quietly. The first was a U.S. Marine named Daniel Reeves. Before the war, he had been a husband and father. His laughter once filled a small house in Virginia. Now that house was a crater, and laughter was a language he no longer spoke. Reeves had served in every war humanity ever regretted, but this one was different. He carried his grief like armor, and his silence spoke louder than orders. The second was Lieutenant Mason Hale, a Navy SEAL whose mind was as sharp as the blade he carried. Where Reeves embodied steadfast endurance, Hale was movement and calculation, a predator shaped by oceans and loss. He had lost his younger brother in the first bombardment, one of the millions vaporized without a name. Every mission since had been personal. Every kill a prayer. When the Continuity Command summoned them, both men arrived wordless. They didn't salute, didn't ask who was in charge. They already knew. There was no chain of command left, only a final purpose. Around them, the last strategists of Earth displayed holographic projections of the alien fleet. Each point of light represented a ship large enough to eclipse a city. But at the center of that swarm was something different, a vessel the size of a continent, pulsing with energy unlike anything human science could explain. The control node. It was the nerve center of the Horde's planetary network, a heart that synchronized every assault, every drone, every orbiting weapon. Destroy it, and the Horde would fracture, fail, and humanity would cease to exist. The mission's name was whispered like a prayer, Operation Last Light. Neither soldier hesitated. They didn't ask how they would reach a ship orbiting high above the Earth, or how two men could succeed where entire armies had fallen. Questions were luxuries for people who still believed in time. Reeves simply said, "When do we go?" Hale checked the charge on his rifle and muttered, "We're already late." The hours before deployment were quiet. The engineers of the ECC fitted them with experimental exosuits, sleek hybrids of alien alloy and human ingenuity. The suits thrummed with a strange energy, glowing faintly beneath the skin. Reeves flexed his fingers, feeling the weight of the weaponry grafted into his armor. Hale calibrated the targeting systems, every movement precise, surgical. Around them, technicians moved in whispers, aware they were witnessing the last gamble of their species. Reeves looked out through the blast doors at the night beyond. The sky was still smoldering, painted in red streaks where the atmosphere itself had burned. He thought of his daughter, her tiny hand reaching for him the morning he left for duty, the promise he failed to keep. "I'll be home soon." Now home was ashes, but he could still keep the promise in another way, by making sure no other father would have to lie the same words. Hale approached, his helmet tucked under one arm. "You believe this'll work?" he asked. Reeves didn't answer immediately. He turned, his gaze hard but steady. "Doesn't matter," he said. "We're the last ones left to try." Their transport, a stealth craft shaped like a black arrowhead, waited on a launch pad. Inside, the hum of alien technology mingled with the faint heartbeat of the planet's dying generators. As they stepped aboard, the ground crew saluted, not out of protocol, but out of reverence. No one expected to see them return. The craft rose into the night, slicing through the smoke and cloud. Below, the remnants of Earth flickered like dying embers. Above, the vast shape of the alien mothership loomed against the stars, a black wound across the sky. Its surface shimmered with strange geometry, alive with movement. Hale strapped in, eyes locked on the growing shadow. 50 million gone, he said quietly. We're all that's left to answer. Reeves checked his weapon one last time. Then let's make it an answer they remember. Lightning flashed, distant and hollow. The craft breached the upper atmosphere, engines screaming as alien radar beams searched the void. The planet shrank beneath them, fragile and blue. Neither man looked back. Their world was behind them, their purpose ahead. Inside the cockpit, the AI's voice crackled. Target trajectory confirmed. Insertion point 30 clicks from the control node. Cloaking engaged. Reeves glanced at Hale. For a moment, the two men shared a look of wordless understanding. The kind only soldiers know. They were not fighting for victory anymore. They were fighting for meaning, for the right to say that humanity did not go quietly into extinction. The stars ahead twisted as the mothership's gravitational field pulled them in. The hull trembled. The cloaking systems flickered. Hale grinned through the turbulence. Guess they know we're coming. Reeves smirked, a shadow of his old self breaking through the grief. Good, he said. Let them. The craft dove into darkness, swallowed whole by the alien colossus hanging above a world it had nearly destroyed. 2 soldiers against a civilization of conquerors. 2 human hearts defying an empire of gods. And somewhere, far below, the silent Earth waited, hoping that its final light had not yet gone out. The stealth craft shuddered as it tore through the alien gravity envelope, its hull groaning like a beast pushed beyond its limits. Reeves steadied himself against a vibrating bulkhead, while Hale monitored the flickering displays that struggled to interpret the alien ship's shifting architecture. A shrill alarm pierced the cockpit as the cloaking field destabilized. Hale cursed under his breath, his hands flying across the controls in a futile attempt to compensate. The alien mothership was reacting, its surface rippling with luminous veins as if it sensed the intruder's heartbeat. Before either soldier could speak, a burst of plasma slammed into craft. The shock wave hurled them sideways, throwing sparks, shrapnel, and searing light through the cabin. Hale yelled for Reeves to brace as the craft spiraled violently. Another impact split a wing clean off, sending the vessel tumbling toward a colossal hull below. Reeves gritted his teeth and gripped the harness, so tightly his knuckles whitened beneath the armored gloves. The windshield spun with streaks of red, silver, and ghostly blue as the alien metal rushed upward to swallow them. The crash was catastrophic. The craft skidded along the curved hull, metal shrieking, sparks erupting in blinding arcs. It finally came to a grinding halt against a ridge of obsidian-like plating. For a long moment, neither man moved. The world was silent except for the distant thrum pulsing through the alien ship. Reeves lifted his head, pain stabbing through his ribs. Hale groaned and unclipped himself in the wreckage, blood trailing down his cheek, but eyes sharp with determination. Their entry had been compromised, their exit destroyed, and the odds, already bleak, had plummeted further. Still, the mission endured. It had to. They forced open the shattered hatch and stepped onto the alien surface. The hull felt alive beneath their boots, vibrating with a slow, rhythmic pulse, as if the ship itself breathed. Hale scanned the towering structures, rising from the surface like twisted, metallic roots. "This thing's not built," he muttered. "It's grown." Reeves didn't answer. He was already charting the path toward a faint energy beacon marking the control node. The air tasted metallic, tinged with something chemical and cold. He lifted his weapon, knowing with grim certainty that the Horde was already aware of their presence. Minutes later, a shrill warble tore through the air, followed by an eruption of movement across the hull. Alien drones, sleek creatures forged from metal and sinew, emerged from crevices, slithering and unfolding into razor-limbed nightmares. Their eyes glowed with predatory intelligence. The first lunged, its limbs slicing at impossible angles. Hale rolled aside, firing bursts that tore through the drone's core. Reeves met another head-on, using sheer force to drive it backward before plunging his blade into its throbbing circuitry. More came, adapting instantly, altering their formations, and countering every offensive strategy. A ferocious skirmish erupted across the alien surface, each moment demanding precision and instinct. Reeves moved like a battering ram fueled by grief, every strike echoing the silent promise he'd made to the family he'd lost. Hale fought with lethal grace, turning each dodge into a calculated counterstrike. Despite their skill, the aliens pressed relentlessly. Reeves took a slash to the forearm, feeling acidic fluid burn into the armor. Hale staggered after a drone's tail cracked against his ribs, but neither retreated. When the last drone fell in a heap of sparking limbs, both stood gasping, armor scorched and blood seeping into their undersuits. Reeves wiped the alien residue from his visor and gestured toward a narrow slit-like doorway ahead, likely an access point into the ship's interior. "We keep moving," he said. Hale nodded, though pain tightened his jaw. The doorway parted with a guttural hiss, revealing a corridor that resembled the inside of a living organism. The walls were ribbed, flexing with each pulse of the ship. Bioluminescent veins cast an eerie glow over their path. Every step echoed like bone snapping. Venturing deeper, they found chambers filled with horrors that froze their breath. Hundreds of human bodies hung suspended in translucent membranes, their faces pale and still. Tubes siphoned neural energy into conduits that flowed toward the central core. Hale pressed a trembling hand against one membrane, whispering his brother's name as if he feared seeing him among the victims. The sight hardened something inside Reeves, turning grief into an unbreakable spear. He rested a hand briefly on Hale's shoulder, a rare gesture of solidarity, then pushed onward. The deeper they descended, the more the ship responded. The floors rippled beneath them. Alien symbols flared to life on the walls. The air thickened with static energy. Reeves noticed something chilling. Some of the symbols displayed their faces, names, and military histories. The Horde had studied them, expected them, hunted them long before this moment. It wasn't random that they had survived so long. They were being lured, measured, tested. The realization did not weaken their resolve. It sharpened it. A tremor shook the corridor as they neared the central chamber. The pulse of the control node felt like a heartbeat, a massive, ominous rhythm echoing through the structure. Reeves felt it rattle through his bones, felt the weight of their mission tightening around his lungs. Hale's breathing grew ragged, but his eyes burned with fierce clarity. Ahead, a vast door began to open, spilling harsh white light into the hallway. They stopped at the threshold, staring into the blinding radiance where shadows moved with deliberate intent. Something waited inside, something powerful, something ancient, something undeniably aware of who they were and why they had come. Reeves tightened his grip on his rifle. Hale steadied himself, ignoring the pain that throbbed with every heartbeat. Despite everything, despite the broken craft, the wounds, the impossible odds, a shared resolve passed between them. They had made it this far. The path behind had been cut away. The path forward was the only one left. Reeves stepped into light first, every muscle tense, every instinct alert. Hale followed, silent but unbroken. Whatever waited within the chamber would decide the fate of humanity, and both soldiers crossed the threshold knowing they might not leave it alive. But they entered anyway, because the world still needed them, because millions of voices silenced too soon deserved vengeance, and because giving up had never been part of their nature. The chamber's brilliance dimmed as Reeves and Hale advanced, revealing a cavernous arena shaped like the inside of a star. Columns of energy spiraled upward, twisting into a vortex that illuminated the beating core of the control node. It hovered in the center, an enormous, pulsating sphere of light interwoven with streaks of darkness that writhed like serpents. Its rhythm was slow but thunderous, echoing through the soldiers' chests as though trying to synchronize with their hearts. Beneath the orb stood a towering figure, its silhouette monstrous and regal, as if sculpted from war itself. The warlord stepped forward. Its armor shimmered with an oily sheen, engraved with symbols that pulsed like living scars. For eyes glowed a deep crimson, fixed on the two intruders with Predator's calculated interest. In its hands, a weapon fused from blade and energy hummed with malevolent purpose. When it spoke, The voice bypassed sound entirely, vibrating inside their minds with cold clarity. It addressed them not as soldiers, but as anomalies, humans who had survived battles meant to erase them. Hale felt the psychic pressure clawing at his mind, but he forced himself upright, unwilling to bend under the weight of alien dominance. Reeves stepped closer, feeling the faint tremor of anger rising within him. The warlord projected images into his mind, his wife's smile, his daughter's laughter, and then the searing flash that consumed him. He staggered but refused to fall. The invader's intent was obvious, to unmake his resolve before the fight even began. Reeves gripped his weapon tighter, anchoring himself in the memory rather than the pain. Hale sensed his partner's internal struggle and took a step forward, drawing the warlord's attention toward himself. His voice cut through the oppressive tension, steady yet burning with defiance. The warlord lunged. The chamber erupted into chaos as the energy columns flickered violently. Reeves and Hale split instinctively, honed by years of training and scars carved by the battlefield. The alien commander moved with terrifying speed, its blade carving streaks of sizzling air wherever it swung. Reeves blocked the first strike, but the force sent him crashing into a pillar of light, his armor cracking along the chest plate. Hale fired precise bursts, aiming for the joints where the armor thinned, but the warlord deflected them with casual ease, redirecting the shots into the chamber walls. The battle unfolded like a storm. The warlord fought with the confidence of a ruler who had ended entire civilizations. Reeves countered with raw determination, meeting each strike with brutal resilience. Hale moved like a shadow, anticipating patterns, probing weaknesses, searching for any flaw in the alien's near-perfect defense. The warlord adapted quickly, its movements growing more aggressive as if realizing these two humans were far from ordinary prey. A punishing blow sent Hale sprawling to the floor, vision blurring. Reeves roared and struck him a flank, forcing the commander back a step with a heavy slam of his armored fist. The warlord retaliated with a psychic wave that hurled Reeves across the chamber, cracking the ground beneath him. Pain surged through his spine, but the memory of his daughter's voice pushed him to rise again. He refused to let his story end here. Hale regained his footing and spotted a destabilized energy conduit sparking near the base of the control node. A plan formed, dangerous, desperate, but possible. He called out to Reeves, his voice strained but resolute, and pointed to the malfunctioning core. Reeves immediately understood. If they could overload the node's internal structure, the entire mothership would collapse. But they would need time the warlord had no intention of granting. Reeves engaged the alien head-on, drawing its attention with relentless strikes. Each blow came at the cost of bone-rattling impacts, but he pressed forward, his rage and sorrow fueling every movement. The warlord roared, its blade cleaving through the air as it attempted to break the marine entirely. Hale crawled toward the conduit, fingers trembling as he primed the explosive charge taken from his armor. Every breath felt like fire, but he pushed through the agony, driven by the faces of the countless victims suspended in the ship's chambers. When the charge locked into place, Hale felt a cold certainty settle over him. The overload would be catastrophic. The blast radius would reach the entire chamber. Reeves would have seconds, maybe less. Hale lifted his head to warn him, but the warlord struck first. Its blade impaled Hale's side, driving him against the floor. Blood filled his throat, but he held the detonator tightly. Reeves saw the blow and roared with a fury that echoed through the chamber like a war drum. He launched himself at the warlord, slamming the alien commander backward with every ounce of remaining strength. The warlord staggered, momentarily off balance. Reeves seized the opening, driving a jagged fragment of alien metal into the creature's neck. The alien let out a psychic scream that shook the air itself. Reeves forced the blade deeper, his vision blurring with rage and sorrow until the warlord collapsed in a heap of convulsing limbs. Reeves limped toward Hale, dropping to one knee beside him. Hale managed a weak smile, pressing the detonator into his hand. His voice came out in a whisper, thin and fading, but steady with purpose. He told Reeves to finish it for the world that still needed a future. Reeves clenched his jaw, absorbing the weight of the sacrifice. He squeezed Hale's shoulder, a silent vow passing between them. The control node's pulse grew erratic. Sparks erupted as the overload sequence began. Reeves placed a detonator on the ground, whispered a final promise to his fallen brother-in-arms, and triggered the sequence. The chamber filled with blinding light that swallowed everything. Pain, sorrow, fear, until only purpose remained. The mothership ruptured in a chain of colossal explosions that lit the sky above Earth. Alien formations fractured and fell from orbit as the control node collapsed into silence. Across the ravaged planet, scattered human survivors lifted their eyes to the heavens and witnessed the impossible. Humanity had not been erased. It had answered. Reeves' fate remained unknown, lost in the brilliance of the explosion. But his story and Hale's sacrifice became the spark that reignited hope in a world that had nearly forgotten how to breathe.